let's talk about
Peru,
so, because we're talking about Peru and McVladdy Daddy over here. So
yeah, Perutopia is in danger.
It
Shadow
is?
banned.
Oh my God.
Like I said, there's a reason why I have been extremely cautious in my reporting of this and not saying that Pedro Castillo fully has won 100% because it is not yet over. For a lot of people who have recognized him, right? Evo Morales has, Lula has, a lot of people have in the global south. A lot of leaders, even his opposition has recognized, many in his opposition. But with the actas still being counted as of this morning, the JNE has to be the one who says, okay, this is the final thing, and then the OMPE has to name Pedro Castillo the actual winner for it to be official. Pedro Castillo has taken it upon himself to name himself because at this point, what the hell? I mean, even with all of the things taken into account, he's still likely to win unless, of course, they do something they have never done before. And I'm going to explain what that is. So here is the OMPE, or I believe that's the first one. Yes. So the OMPE is denying that there are claims of fraud. So there's a lot of people tweeting, right? There was this guy named Wilmer Munoz Silva who's an anti-communist, and he was saying there's fraud here, they're lying, they're cheating, blah, blah, blah. And so the OMPE is literally saying no to all of these allegations, saying, as you can see in the image, the minutes of table 081931 were resolved by the Lima Centro 1 special electoral jury. The votes for both parties were tallied. The tests are in this link. So you can click on the link and you can see how they resolved the actual, discrepancy that was being called and what happened. And they have the acta with the image that you can look at it. You can look at the votes. You can look at the votes that were null, the votes in blanco, meaning the votes that were for neither.
How is he saying that they're cheating?
Because
by the numbers?
No, they're claiming their claims of rigging involved too many people that weren't favorable to their party, signatures that didn't match, and Keiko Fujimori getting not a single vote in certain areas, right? That's what their claims. And I'm going to go over like the vast majority of their claims. So this guy is saying that there was rigging in Tampa, USA, who cast 8 votes for Castillo and 72 votes for Fuerza Popular and 1 no vote. And then they said that there were no voters at this table, and they're saying like that the numbers were off to what was said initially. Look at the numbers. 72 for Keiko in Tampa. Why? Because the majority of Peruvians living in America, just like a lot of the Venezuelans living in America, they are more likely to vote for Keiko. And they have a problem with a lot of that because they think that should be more. Because there were areas in Miami, for instance, where there was not a single vote for Pedro Castillo, and they were saying, oh, that's totally fine. But when it happened in the provincias, in the rural areas, there was not a single vote for Fujimori.
They were
like,
it.
yeah, how is that possible? It's like, wait a minute. And I'll show you guys the
comparison.
Between
the two? All right.
But the OMPE retweeted this too from the Transparencia Peru. It's an organization that looks into alleged election fraud. And they said Transparencia Peru reiterates that it has not found any indication of fraud in the elections of June 6th, an issue on which the International Electoral Observation Missions and the Ombudsman's Office have coincided. They're not the only ones. The observers that came also didn't find anything at the front of the house. They said they were more concerned with the other, like the bribing for Keiko Fujimori and how the counting is private, but they said no, that they hadn't seen anything else at the front of the
office.
house.
Yeah.
So the JNE is going to review these tallies, okay? And this was as of earlier today. And I'm going to click on it so you guys can read the translated tweet, Johnny, so they can read that. But it's basically what? Hold on. Let me go back.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the JNE, and they were going to review the 12 appeal files or the tallies of they were going to review the 12 tallies, the actas that happened in the second round of elections. So they were going to review that, and it was going to be publicly available via these channels right there.
What's that say up there here?
What?
It will view 12 appeal files of the minutes observed from second
Yeah,
round
it's
of
not
elections.
a great translation. So I'm trying to say, like, they're going to review the actas, the tallies that were in question. So they were going to review that this morning. So that's what's going on that end, right? The JNE has to be the one to call out, right? They have to be the ones to say, oh, hey, so after reviewing these tallies, still Pedro Castillo is this. Or if they're going to say, oh, actually, we found blah, blah, blah. Highly unlikely for anything to happen. And here's the double standard I wanted to show you guys, right?
Yeah.
It says, la doble moral y el racismo del Fujimorismo. The double standards and the racism of the Fujimorismo. So they have, cuando votan en Miami es democracia, right? When they vote in Miami, it's democracy. 0 for Pedro Castillo, all of them for Keiko. Cuando votan en la serranía, in the, like, you know, the mountains, it's fraud. So you can see all of them for Pedro Castillo, none for Keiko. So they're double standards. This is what a lot of they're alleging, is that because she didn't get a single vote in these areas, that they need to go over these areas, that something had to be wrong. And they're saying because they had more people that were on his side. So that's where their claims stem from, mainly. Like that in the signatures. Now, the problem with that is, by all accounts, even with all of that, Castillo won. And I'm gonna this woman's a Peruvian media person, and she's not partial to Castillo.
I wanted to just make one comment about that, because I know you're going to be writing an article, and I can't wait for it to come out and stuff like that. But it is not like the same type of election we have here in the United States. It's very, very different, the way these votes. This is very logical that in Miami, people living under American passports and whatnot living here would vote for Fujimori, and yet in the mountains or the regions where it's poor indigenous people, they'll all vote for Castillo. The thing that really sucks is that they own a lot of the mainstream media to kind of bait that narrative, and this is one of the only shows, what Fee just put up there and showed you, this is one of the only shows that will show you that in elections, how it makes sense, but yet they're trying to twist it one way. Because if that did happen in America, because I even made a comment, in Georgia, 850 military votes all went for Joe Biden in one batch. I said that just is impossible. That is impossible here, but in a place like Peru, this is very logical. And you have to distinguish between the two.
You have to distinguish between the two. Also, the people that are getting screwed by privatization and who got screwed by Alberto Fujimori's dictatorship were all like rural people. They're also getting their land taken away right now as we speak. So they despise her. Like, when I say despise, I mean despise her and her entire family. They want nothing to do with her. Whereas the people in Lima and a lot of the people that are expats left Peru because of a lot of the fears that came from the Shining Path and the association with communism and that. So they despise any sort of affiliation with any remnant of socialism or communism. And they equate that to Venezuela. And they have been propagandized by American Western media the same way that the people in Lima have. The people who live in the rural areas do not. They know about their government, but they don't follow the propaganda. And Jonny can tell you the same thing. Like, when you speak to these people like who are family members, like they don't necessarily love Keiko, but they are so scared of communism. So you will see, especially in Miami, where you have, a lot of people that have been here for a while and are kind of like lost touch with everything that's happening in Peru. You're going to have them vote more conservative, the same way you have Cubans vote conservative, the same way you have Venezuelans vote conservative. It's the same thing. That's why it's different. You cannot apply your limited myopic worldview of elections in America to every other country without taking in the historical context and also the culture and why people feel the way they do. It's not something you do. But the fucking progressive reactionary take is to say, oh, this is just like Trump. Oh my God, I want to punch people when they say that. Now,
myopic at best.
I'm gonna this woman speaks slow, so Jonny, this is important what she's saying. She's breaking down all the reasons why Pedro Castillo has effectively won. She's not partial to Castillo, but she's even saying he's won. So
you want me to translate, or you got it?
Fam,
got it.
1 minute 47 is when she starts, and I'll tell you when to stop.
emitidos en el proceso electoral del 6 de junio. Contabilidad de todos los votos emitidos en el proceso electoral del 6 de junio. 100%. Es decir, ganó Castillo por más de...
So 100% of the votes have been tallied and counted. 100%, 100%. So it's effectively Pedro Castillo has won.
40,000 votos, una diferencia parecida a la que tuvo Pedro Pablo Kuczynski respecto también a Keiko Fujimori.
A very similar difference, about 40,000 votes that Keiko had last time she ran against Pablo Kuczynski, which was the previous winner of the Peruvian elections 5 years ago. Those were, of course, Peru has 5-year terms. Mm-hmm.
Inmediatamente se alzaron voces diciendo, un momentito, alto la acción, ¿cómo que Castillo presidente? No. Falta la resolución de las actas impugnadas en el Jurado Nacional de Elecciones.
So immediately when people were saying that Pedro Castillo won, they said, wait a minute. Pedro Castillo, what do you mean he won? You need to go over the actas that were appealed in this whole thing by Keiko Fujimori.
Y es verdad, el candidato lo proclama el Jurado Nacional de Elecciones. No se proclama uno mismo.
And it's true.
Pero
the winner is announced by the Jurado Nacional de Elecciones, which is the JNE. They don't proclaim themselves the winner.
Aún con la resolución de esas actas, y esto hay que explicarlo de nuevo con calma.
But even with the resolution
de
and the
esas
results of those tallies, and we have to explain this very slowly.
Actas, incluyendo las que entrarían hasta las 12 de la noche según...
Including the ones that would come in past midnight, according to Fuerza Popular, is what she's going to say.
Fuerza Popular, incluyendo esas. Es imposible.
It's impossible
que Keiko Fujimori sea presidente.
That Keiko Fujimori will be president. She's saying that even with those actas that still have to be reviewed by the JNE, it's impossible for Keiko to be president.
Lo hemos explicado varias veces.
We have gone over this so many times.
Para que se declare la nulidad del íntegro de una mesa donde han votado más de 200, a veces 300. To get
nullification from a table where more than thousands of people have voted.
Personas, se requiere una probanza alta.
You need high proof.
Presumir que una mesa es sospechosa.
You can't just assume that a table is suspect.
Porque la mesa del costado votó diferente.
Because the table next to them voted differently. Because that's what they're basing their allegations on.
Se tiene que probar cohecho, fraude, soborno, intimidación.
You need to provide with proof, fraud, bribery, and voter intimidation.
O violencia
or violence.
Parte de los 3 miembros de mesa, los electores,
by
para
the 3 members of the table and the electors.
Los expedientes que se han presentado en ningún caso contienen materia probatoria de intimidación, violencia, fraude.
The proof that has, or the evidence that has been shown, by no means has any proof of intimidation, violence.
Uno de esos hechos se han presentado porque las firmas son ilegibles.
The evidence se han presentado porque been because the signatures are ineligible.
Las firmas no parecen verdaderas.
Because they don't look real.
Se han presentado porque parientes son miembros de mesa o porque tienen el mismo apellido.
Because some people who are family members are operating the same table, or because they simply have the same name, last name.
Esas efectivamente son irregularidades, pero no invalidan.
Those are effectively irregularities, but they don't invalidate.
No invalidan el íntegro de la mesa.
The integrity of the election, the table election.
En algunos casos, seguramente, los jurados electorales especiales y el Jurado Nacional de Elecciones encontrará una que otra acta.
In some cases, the jurados especiales, so like the juries like looking over this election, might find one act that is.
Pero, de verdad, en serio, Castillo ya ganó.
But seriously, she said they might find an act that might have something wrong with it, but really seriously, Castillo has already won. So we can stop it. And then she goes on to talk about how so many people, you know, for so many people, that's a terrible thing. So many people are afraid that he's going to take the country into an authoritarian way and that could happen and all this stuff. But he's won. And so it like she's going over all of all of these things that are out in the media, right? Because they're saying, oh, but this and that. And there's just, she literally does not have proof. I mean, her allegations are your name and my name are the same name. So that's suspect. Those are her allegations. The signatures have been verified by several other people who came out and said, this is my signature, all of that. So she really doesn't have anything going. She keeps paying these lawyers, these people. She has further weight she has people on her side in these organizations like the OMPE and the JNE. So if anybody wanted to scream fraud, it would be Pedro Castillo's side, because of the conflict of interest that these people have that have been supportive of Keiko. So it gets worse, fam. But I just wanted to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, I just want to say that, you know, you're going to have a lot to kind of lay out there before we get to this next part right here, which is the really scary part about this whole situation when we talk, what Fam's about to talk about. But I understand when people, well, Pasta, you have no proof when you say that this election in America was rigged. And I will say, well, there's a ton of irregularities and a lot of data that points to a possibility of fraud that we need to look at. And they're going to say, well, why are you saying the same thing over here when this person's saying there's irregularities and you're saying no. But I think we have to understand the nuance between the two different elections. And I just can't wait for your article to come out and talk about these things.
These are paper ballots.
Paper ballots, 1 day of voting, no absentee ballots.
No absentee ballots.
None of that stuff.
No Dropbox.
No proprietary software. No drop boxes.
ID verification.
Yes. So, I mean, like you said, if you would say this election here in Peru was in America, you consider it right-wing.
Make American elections like Peru, and then you're going to have a completely different...
Yeah. What I'm saying is that Trump wouldn't have complained one bit.
I don't know about Trump because I don't want to just lay my, you know, I don't care what he does because I think he's an opportunist too, and I think he's done his own thing.
People are going to compare this situation to what Trump has said. You know what I'm saying?
But I'm not going to say what Trump might have done because I don't know. He still could have done whatever. It just wouldn't hold any validation, and it wouldn't hold the same level because you have people who have worked there for years giving their testimony. Where are the people who have worked there giving their testimony and saying, hey, yeah, I saw some irregularities, I saw this and that, and it's so much easier to trace back when you have these people that are literally they get paid for what they do, right? They work there, they get paid, they don't get paid a lot, but you can trace them back and you can talk to them and they can be like, yeah, this is my signature, let's verify it. That's you can't even do that here. We don't have access to the same software. We don't have access to it's proprietary software. So it's not the same thing. And so that the way these two the elections are done so completely different that comparing them just doesn't hold up because they're done in two completely different ways. And it's just because she's on the right and Trump's on the right, by the way, Biden's also on the right, doesn't mean that it's automatically like that. It doesn't mean that election fraud doesn't exist in other countries. In fact, right here, there could have been claims of election fraud, and there are still claims against Pedro Castillo because she has all the weight and all the power. And Pedro Castillo is not Keiko Fujimori. I mean, Trump isn't Trump is not Keiko Fujimori, and neither is Joe Biden. Is definitely not a Pedro Castillo. Yeah. You know what I mean? The establishment wanted whoever to win, whoever was going to represent whatever narrative they wanted. It doesn't fucking matter in America. It really fucking doesn't. Yeah. In Peru, it could mean a lot. Yeah, who changes, who becomes president. In America, your presidents are fucking puppets, and they're manipulated by the national security apparatus and the military industrial complex. Stop comparing apples and fucking oranges. And
it's
anyway,
I put it up there.
there's a possible orchestration against Castillo that has been reported by Brazilian media. And this is, I'm just going to translate this. There was a serious complaint coming from Brazil. According to a journalist, Hildegard Angel, an orchestrated fraud is in favor of Keiko Fujimori. The OEA Secretary General Luis Almagro, which the OEA is the OAS, so you know, yes,
same thing,
would have already written a statement recognizing the triumph of Keiko. Below, we will attach the photo of the journalist's original tweet, and I'm going to go to her tweet directly and write the translation. Okay, so we're going to... Here it is. I'm just going to read it directly from the tweet, Johnny. So let's just go to the tweet, what she said. Hold on. And also Evo Morales warned them. I'll go into that in a second, but I'm just going to go read her tweet. Her name is Hildegard Angel. Okay. And she said... Very serious accusation arrives from Peru, reveals an orchestrated fraud in favor of Keiko Fujimori against Pedro Castillo. The OAS Secretary General, Luis Almagro, had already written a statement acknowledging of Keiko's triumph so that the results indicate her as the winner. And this is like triple translation. A high-ranking military leader who could be the FAA Joint Command would have plotted with Almagro so that after issuing the OAS communications, the country would be immediately militarized with vote control, avoiding any complaints of recounts and therefore quelling the protests in the streets. Then she goes on to talk about, I think there's another one. Let me see. Yeah, let me continue going back to the Facebook post. I think that's most of it. But I wanted to point out a couple things too. On May 4th, with less than 1 month left until the second round of voting, Pedro Cateriano met with Almagro. And I'm not 100% sure who this guy is, but I wanted to point out who Luis Almagro is. But he said he met with the ex-prime minister of Peru, right? His name was Cateriano. And he met with him around May 4th, I believe May 5th. And they were talking about or May 4th, yeah. It's backwards over there.
Oh, so it's
May 4th. So May 4th. Yeah, they do it backwards in there. They were talking about how to maintain democracy in the region. So it's kind of scary because Evo Morales also warned him against trusting the OE and the OAS. You guys can see here in this tweet. I believe it's the next one. Did I put it in the right one? Let me see. I might have put the wrong one. Evo Morales basically told him he needs to be careful with
of the OAS.
Well, and not trust the OAS.
What he experienced there, we know all about it.
Yeah.
Right? You know, so pretty much what you're saying, family.
Right here. It's my experience that Castillo cannot trust in the OAS or Luis Almagro. All the institutions and the international community need to respect the results and the will of the people of Peru. Okay, the will and sovereignty of the people of Peru. And he said that recently, right? And so Pedro Morales is over here fucking warning Pedro Castillo and like people like, listen, stay away from the OAS. Do not trust them at all. And it's basically the same. It's just the translation for it. So if you go to Luis Almagro's profile, right, his underscore is Almagro OEA 2015, and you can look at his profile. He retweeted Anthony Blinken, by the way.
Oh God.
He's, and look, his bio is basically just says, my vision, shared wealth and opportunities for everyone and Americans within OAS that strengthens democracy, development, security, and human rights. Guys, that is literally like not that, like, it's just such a red flag to me. It does something to my heart. My heart is palpitating that this guy has been meeting with the ex official of Peru before this whole happened, and they were talking about securing democracy in Peru, and now they're saying that there's like this document that they had already called for the congratulations of Keiko Fujimori. And of course Evo Morales' warning. You're putting 2 and 2 together. You're putting the fact that never in the history of Peru has it taken this long to elect a president. Like he has won. He's got all the verification of the ballots. 40,000 votes. She can't catch up. We just even heard another lady wasn't even partial to him say, "Hey, he's by all accounts he's won."
Yep.
And then you have, of course, the OAS coming in, and we know that the OAS does what they do, right? So what's happening in Brazil is that Brazil is going to have a protest with Peruvians in solidarity. This Saturday in all regions of Peru, there will be demonstrations in defense of democracy and the inauguration of Pedro Castillo. They are the welcome winds of the Andes, connected to the winds of Brazil, out all the fascists in the world. So el sábado 19 de junio, tomorrow at 3 p.m., the Plaza San Martín. Plaza San Martín is like the main plaza in the center of Peru. I was there before. In Lima. And this is where they're going to have this protest, and the Brazilian media is also aligning with the protest, and it says for the defense of democracy and the country. La patria is like, our country. No al golpe de estado. No coup. Basically, is what they're saying. No coup, and it's coordinated by the defense of the vote, the democracia y la patria. So the democracy and the people.
I have questions. So what is the letter that they caught from the OAS? In other words, because they were trying to say that pretty much if Keiko had a lead of sorts, they were going to come on in and deploy the military and whatnot. So was this somebody got a leaked information and kind of put this out to kind of foil their plans? Is that what we're seeing in this situation?
Yeah, she tweeted this June 16th.
Okay.
And she's saying that she's a journalist, and she's saying a Brazilian journalist, and that they have word that there's a coup, there was already a coup orchestrated in favor of Keiko against Pedro Castillo. Yeah. Okay, that the OAS Secretary General, the one Luis Almagro, had already met with one of Peru's leaders and had written a statement acknowledging Keiko's triumph. Yes. We don't have the statement. That's what I was looking for, and I'm like, I want the statement. But there's no, I want to find that statement. But
you said the tweet was already written, right? Or something.
Well, there was Almagro had a tweet up that we just went over where he was meeting with the officer. He was the high-ranking military leader, and they were meeting together. But there was like no tweet that says what they were doing. It's just saying like there was a statement made that said that they were already congratulating Keiko on her victory. Yeah,
and it says right
here before the elections happened.
And then all of a sudden they were going to bring in a high-ranking military leader who would then put the country on lockdown and say they wouldn't accept a vote control avoiding any complaints or recounts, and therefore quell all the protests in the streets. So they had this plan. The OAS was already licking their chops and getting ready to work in coordination with Keiko to go and shut shit down. So I'm assuming they thought they would have the lead and really shut things down. But, they got bit in the ass.
That's the thing. Yeah, their plan hasn't worked. That doesn't mean it can't. So a lot of things are writing on the JNE, right? Yeah. Because they're the ones that are going to say, okay, these acts are going to be invalidated. These acts are not going to be invalidated. Some of them are, some of them aren't. But even if those are invalidated, I mean, the vote total would have to surpass 40,000 votes for Keiko to win. So the scariest part for me is that this happened, that there was a meeting, that there was talk, that there's supposedly this letter, right? Yeah. That nobody has, but is being reported, that we have a CIA embassy, like a CIA diplomat in Peru. Like, she's been in Iran, she's been all over the place. That we have the OAS, of course, always keeping their eye on Peru. That Keiko Fujimori's interests are extremely well tied into U.S. interests of privatization with lithium, Fourth Industrial Revolution, big business, all tied into Keiko. They have convinced a sector of the population in Lima that the rich people are going to leave them, and they're not going to have the rich people are going to leave, so they're not going to give you jobs. They have convinced that sector of the population. And then you have Keiko's people and Keiko alleging fraud among this. If they keep pushing and continuing, it's going to require an outside source, right? It's going to require an outside source to come in and say, oh, hey, by the way, we need to have fair and free elections, Peruvian elections, blah, blah, blah. And because Pedro Castillo isn't just Pedro Castillo. Pedro Castillo is a member of this party called Peru Libre. Peru Libre has people that are to the left of Pedro Castillo, has people that despise America, the Western Empire. And they want the DEA out. They want these American military goons that come in and like exert their little maneuvers into the Peruvian government. They have said this on multiple interviews in Spanish. And if that happens, then the United States interest, the Western interest in these very, very profitable resources would suffer, because Peru wants to keep their wealth in their country. I mean, they do. Like, all the wealth is exported out. So there's a lot riding on this election. When I said that, that's why I wanted to go, because I know that there's a lot riding on this election, and it's also coming back. It's historical context. It's bringing back all of the tensions that happened between the left and the neo-fascist regime under Alberto Fujimori. Again, that whole the reason for that uprising in the rural areas of Peru with Shining Path didn't just happen out of nowhere. It happened because these people were being exploited. They were being abused. And so what happens to people when you don't listen to them, right? A violent revolution, blah, blah, blah. There was an attempt. Yeah. And so that now all of this history is coming back into the present and will be dictating what happens in the future. So there's so much writing on this.
Well, I mean, this is the most scary part. Even if Cory Booker says he stands behind the OAS, we do not. We understand what they're all about. Yeah. They're an NGO fucking imperialist think tank that really is a mechanism for manufacturing consent for regime change by saying that these elections suck and these elections are no good. And they never really give you instances of exactly why it sucks or what's not. They just kind of say, oh, it's just bullshit. You know what I'm saying? It was fraud. It was involved and whatnot. And yet they ignore the shit that happens here at home, and they push this kind of narratives. For me, this has always been a cause for concern if the OAS gets involved.
Right.
And seeing the fact that they were already preparing to get involved means, well, just wait for plan B. Like I said, wait for some type of story to come out, some kind of jockeying from the mainstream media to say, okay, look at what's Pedro Castillo's history. They're going to try to maybe tie him to the Shining Path. And all
they already did that.
Well, they're going to do it in the mainstream
Peruvian
media now.
They kind of did it. They did it in CNN in Espanol, tying this recent attack in the rural area to Shining Path, to Pedro Castillo. They already did it.
Wait but it could Maddow gets a hold of it.
Amp it up and say, oh, and the guy is retweeting freaking Anthony Blinken.
I mean,
are you fucking kidding me?
That tells you everything you need to know about the OAS.
And Evo Morales is like seeing the pieces. He's like, okay,
because he won his election pretty much, squashed the second round, and the OAS came in, and the next thing you know, there was a coup, and Evo Morales was fleeing the country just to make sure things were safe.
The military aspect too, that's an important, because remember we said that before. Evo Morales failed to get the military on his side, something that Nicolas Maduro was able to do. And the military, having the military on your side in any revolution, and I think I mentioned this with Steve the other day when I was on his show, you need like some of them. You guys, you got to get some of them, because there's going to be people who leave the military who support the country, the people as a whole.
Absolutely.
If you don't have that, what kind of revolution are you going to have? And this is what people need to learn time and time again. This is why it's so instrumental that they pointed out the military, because the military would be the ones that are going to curtail any sort of protest, because trust me, these people are going to protest. Like they were saying from the moment I was there, if there's fraud here and we smell fraud and all of this stuff, and they're going to come in and do this, we swear we're going to be out here until, by any means necessary, we're going to get her out. We're not going to allow her to be president. They're just not. And they're going to come from all the provinces and they're already there. They're already there marching in the streets, demanding that Pedro Castillo be officially named the president. And so you're having this whole situation. This is why I think if they're smart, they won't coup, because they won't do it right now, because people are like so ready to pounce.
Well, we'll see, because there is cause for concern.
Yeah.
when Pedro Castillo is just a teacher. He doesn't have any ties to anybody in the military.
Nothing.
And that's going to be a scary part because Evo Morales was able to get the indigenous people all on his side the way he, brought them out of poverty, got them education, healthcare, all this thing, moved them up to another class.
They don't want him to have that chance. They don't want Castillo to have that chance.
But that's that's the cause for concern. But Morales wasn't close with the military, and therefore he had to flee the country. But now they're going back and they're trying to try some of those people who were part of that coup, and it's kind of interesting to see the way America's acting with that situation and this situation. We have to keep our eyes and ears open because, like we said, there's a lot of lithium there. There's a lot of minerals there. The United States wants them. The West wants them for the fourth industrial revolution.
I do
so
like
they're not going to go down quietly, fam.
Yeah, and I do like the alliance I'm seeing between people in Brazil and people in Bolivia with Peru, because if you think about it, all these regions have similar resources. They also, Peru and Brazil share the Amazon as well. I think Colombia gets a little bit of it. And so you have these regions that have, I've been waiting for this moment, work together against the American, because that's pretty much what you have to do. I mean, look at how they're exploiting and privatizing the Amazon. That's affecting every fucking indigenous
killing the
person
pink dolphins
there. Exactly, the pink dolphins. And I think they see this here. The global South is seeing what the West is doing to them, and they're like, okay, that's it, no more. Yeah,
no
so we're seeing it in Colombia as well, how they're doing their strike. I mean, this is happening for a reason. And it's just, to me, I'm like, America, look at what they're doing. Look and learn, because we have more in common with the people of the global South and the working class people there that are just as upset at the West as we are. Because none of us are getting any of this. We're not benefiting from their exploitation. Not even a little bit. If you want to be selfish, not even a little bit are you benefiting.
Yeah. But we got to be careful. There's a lot of American bases in the global South. They can mobilize really quickly, and like I said, they sell a lot of these military leaders that eventually take over these countries. It's really interesting to see what's happening in El Salvador now too, as well, with the new leader. We got to keep our eyes and our ears open with this, because this is not over yet. They do not want Pedro Castillo to be the president. That is the West. The OAS has already stuck their beak in. And that can be a sign for some serious, serious trouble. In fact, it was the trouble that Evo Morales had to face while he had to flee the country, is everything that was propagated from the OAS. And people like Cory Booker, well, I'm taking my information from the OAS. Fucking donkey.